So first of all, good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Kleczyk, and I'm going to stop a video in a moment to allow for bandwidth, but it is a pleasure being here and be able to speak about the power of Women's Network at the place of work. I think we all know that in the recent couple of years, especially with COVID, women have struggled managing both the work engagements and their responsibilities, as well as their life at work. So as we are thinking through, let me just change my stop the video for a moment. As we are thinking about where last year's or this year's equity or the International Women's Day theme was, it was around equity and embracing it. And I think that's very important, especially for women, thinking about it. How do we engage in best performance at work if we have so much at home that we have to do, meaning being caregivers, meaning being not only taking care of their family members, but also our parents and other activities we have to do. So I was actually thinking to go back a little bit and talk about some of these aspects to make sure that we think about it, what it means from our side, and how equity, focusing not only on equality, which I think we've been focusing a lot, but also on equity, can help women really achieve what they are planning in their lives. So a little bit, as we are thinking about where the focus on women, and last month was International Women's Month. So where we were starting, it was really related to the United States in 1908, when 15,000 women marched in New York City, talking about better working hours, better pay, and equality.
1 minute. So is everybody able to see the talk or screen? One small question, because I'm not sure the presentation, the PPT is visible, right? Anyone acknowledge? Is everybody is able to see?
I can see it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I can see.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you for the confirmation. Thank you for stopping me. So, so I wanted to make sure that we think about it where we started and why equity, especially in the workplace, and how we empower women to create a women's network. How does it play in? It is interesting coming from Poland. When International Women's Day was always something that I grew up with. Coming to the United States, it was not necessarily something that it was celebrated, and only recently has become a very important day for celebrating women. As the Socialist Party all over the world actually picked it up as a way for promoting women and making sure that women have the rights and the equity and equality. And recently in 1996, UN also created a platform which they are very active for this. So we are celebrating it now, and we are really thinking about it, what it means for us. Some of the fun facts about thinking about women and what we have contributed to this world. First of all, the highest IQ ever recorded was by a woman, and her name was Marilyn Vos Savant, an American magazine columnist, and she had her IQ at 228, which is the highest ever. So think about it. It's not a man, but it's actually a woman who has been recorded to having the most mental and brain power that we know. Also, it was very interesting that the first human computer was actually a woman as well, Shakuntala Devi, and she was able in 28 seconds compute 8 digits numbers. So think about that, how quickly she was able to do that. No one ever was able to do this, and only computers now can speed up that function. Women are known to better read faces and reading gestures and voice tones. That's why we are so much better in social environments where we see who is engaged, who is not, and being able to cater to those aspects. Interesting fact that I never knew about it, and I learned just recently, actually from a man, that in women's fashion in 1600s, women mimicked men when it came to heels. As we all know, in Europe, in France especially, men were dressed in a certain way, including having long hair with wigs and high heels and appropriate wear to that. But women started doing this, and the moment men realized that women were mimicking them, but actually looked much better in heels, they stopped doing that. There is, in the United States especially, that might be different in other parts of the world, but it's an interesting fact that now there's more stay-at-home dads then there are stay-at-home moms that are actually taking care of families. And I think that's very important, thinking about it, where women have come from and what it allows us as women to do. And the first computer programmer was a woman. And I think we all have seen several movies related to some NASA engineers and programmers. And I think that actually helps us validate where that comes from. The other piece that I always want to talk about it is the female Nobel Prize winners that we have. There is many of them in literature and peace, which are usually is above 10%. But when we are thinking about sciences, we are really lacking. There is only in medicine 5%, 6%, about the same in chemistry, but less than 4% in physics. Marie Skłodowska-Curie is the only female who has had the only female and the only Nobelist that had the opportunity to get a Nobel Prize in both physics and chemistry. And but the women that, while there were very vast experiences and contributions to the scientific world, unfortunately there hasn't been that many of them. So I think we have still many works to do, many aspects that we have to do in order to involve women. Having less than 10% of women in science getting Nobel Prizes really creates an ability for us to strive forward, but also present some of the aspects that recently has been cited by women leaders all over the world. For example, McKinsey and Company, as well as Lean organization, have been tracking and collaborating on surveying women leaders and women in general across different industries to see what's going on within the trend. Interestingly, the recent report that was published at the end of last year and beginning of this year noted that since 2015, when they started tracking women's leadership and opportunities for advancement, they noted that they noticed that women started actually resigning, stepping down from their leadership roles overall, meaning there's actually fewer women now than were before. So what it means is that I started looking into what does it mean? And I think that was a very interesting point to read that most women cited that many of them are burned out, that the fact that they have to do dual jobs, many of them work 60 to 80 hours a week in their corporate worlds, and then they have to do another 40 hours at their households, taking care of families, really created the burnout factor that is providing them. Furthermore, many of them cited that they don't see at the top levels any support from the organizations. And I think we all know, we've been hearing a lot of debate about coming back to the office. Many executives say that we have to do this, but for women, that's actually a worse situation because it pushes them again into that I cannot be in a leadership role. Recent female leaders that resigned from their positions is Jacinda Ardern. I think we all heard in January, she said that that she's going to be resigning from her post as a Prime Minister of New Zealand. She was one of the first Prime Ministers who was actually pregnant during her leadership role for New Zealand, and a quite liked and loved leader. Hearing her that she was burned out created a lot of bad news for her, but also presented the double standard that women leaders, when they choose to resign, knowing that they need support or they cannot function in their best capacity, instead of celebrating that or thinking about it, what does it mean and what structures we have to have, we are actually creating a bad news and bad press for them, stating that men are as a result better as of that versus women. Susan Wojcicki, CEO of YouTube, recently resigned, as well as Marn Levine, Chief Business Officer at Meta. So these three women really gave us at the beginning of the year thought for thinking what's going on and why the report that was cited by McKinsey and leading organizations, why that actually is confirmed by the trend cited. So as we are thinking about equity in the workplace, let's talk about equality versus equity. I think we are much better when it comes to equality, meaning all employees have access to the same resources regardless pre-existing bodies and challenges they might face. So women have the same opportunities now, minorities have the same opportunities now. However, when we are thinking about the equity aspect, which we've been talking about more and more, is thinking about what it means, how organizations are looking at their employees and realizing that not each employee has the same access, and they have varying access to resources and privileges. And I think it is part of countries' leadership as well as each corporate company to ensure that those with less access may have the ability to get greater support. For example, if you're thinking about institutions, why when we are certain students are not able to go to college, especially from rural areas, it might be because they don't have the same, their parents don't have the same financial aspects. They might not even, if we are thinking about COVID and learning remotely, students living in remote areas don't even have sometimes access to high-speed internet, and they still do it via dial-up. And I think that starts presenting that there is still variety of different levels of access. And if we don't account for it, ultimately equality cannot be achieved. So if I think about equity is the step to have equality in the future. So what can we as women do, and what can we think about it, and how can employers or educational leaders can implement any of the changes? So first of all, make job descriptions accessible, high transparency around the wage ranges, and many of the US companies or states have recently created laws where every post has to have a salary, so everyone has the same opportunity, whether you're female, whether male, whether you're minority, or of any other disadvantaged communities. You have the ability to know what is my minimum that I'm striving for. Provide equitable access to all employees. That everyone, that means it's not only means for accessing resources and opportunities, but also physical spaces. And you see a picture here with an individual in a wheelchair. Very often we don't think about it, that some individuals with mental and health disabilities very often cannot access. They might not be able to come to the boardroom that you're having meeting in, because there's not enough room for them to even get by, or the doors are not wide enough. For mental health individuals, if you have a PTSD, or if you are bipolar, or if you have autism, you might require certain spaces or certain accommodations in order to be able to focus and not be distracted by other noises happening around you. Furthermore, if you're thinking about women and men in sports, very often women and men might not have the same privileges when it comes to where they exercise, how they train. One of the, you can see on the top here, men and women for the University of Connecticut. Both of these teams have had many national titles in basketball at the University of Connecticut in the United States. However, women train in a very rough conditions, while men have a gym full of equipment. Well, how do you equalize this? How do you provide the same equitable resources for them to plan through? As we are thinking about what women can do, being part of many women networks, I always talk about the importance. Interestingly, I'm part of Chief, which is a corporate platform or is a platform for women executives to support each other and talk to each other and meet up and really engage together. She stated, her name is Lindsay Kaplan, co-founder of Chief Network. She stated, it's a powerful space for members to meet other powerful women. I think that men enjoy the true trappings of social gatherings at, for example, the country club over a golf for decades. We think it's really important for women to come together as well. Think about it, many men do business at golf course. Many of them meet up for drinks. Women are not as likely to do that. And I think having women network, whether it's at work or whether it's outside of work or joining any interest group, even at a place of religion, many women meet up and talk about their struggles. It's very important. First of all, women networks are an efficient way to meet valuable contacts and get ideas. How do you expand your network? Women and others, what we are very good in socializing, we never expand our networks. We don't think about it as a part of our job responsibilities. When women are feeling supported as a result of being part of a group, they might feel inspired to sponsor and mentor other women. They are much happier. They are not as willing to leave their posts they are providing, they are at, and ultimately they support each other and support the marginalized groups as well. And then finally, thinking about the space where women can, without any judgment, talk about the aspects that we're talking about right now. What are the gaps that we still have to face? How can we talk about equity? How can we talk about advancements? How can we talk about supporting each other? How can we talk about the even biases across women that we still have? So, for example, before, many women who were got up to the high levels at in the corporate structures tend to not want to bring in younger women. How do we break that mold? How do we ensure that by bringing younger women with us, we create the ladder that we all needed? Always drop the ladder down, allow other women to come behind you. That's why, as well as men, but women need that more than others. And they're thinking about what do you, or how many of you can help with creating those networks if you feel that they are important. And the networks doesn't have to be around gender. They can be around disability. They can be around women taking care of, or family members taking care of elderly parents, thinking about other aspects coming back from being laid off or not having worked, or being a veteran coming from military world, coming into corporate world. So first of all, think about the structure. What is the purpose that you are trying to think about it, and how often are you going to be meeting? Do you want to meet once a quarter? Do you want to meet once a month? Do you want to meet once a week?
Yes, 1 minute. Actually, like one of the important speaker, Millen Lewis, is online. Can you please admin? Can you please admit her, since you are the host?
Sure. How do I do that?
Please, because she is waiting. I'm sorry for interrupting. I'm very sorry for the interruption.
How do I do that?
If you can see on the top.
I see it. Yep.
Yes, just click on admit. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, hopefully they are in now.
Okay. I think she joined. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome, you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for interrupting me. So as I was saying, just think about the structure, think about what it is that you're trying to achieve, what is your goal, and then ultimately think about also how you want to launch it. You want to have a big event. You see here on the bottom, the International Women's Day that we did at my organization. We really focus on that and bring in both men and women and leaders from our organization to really think about it, what it is that we are doing, and provide a platform for others to join. The one thing that I want to mention is don't use the group as an opportunity to advertise. This is not for selling. This is not for creating more business. I'm sure over time this may come in, but it's an opportunity to have a safe environment for those interested to share their experiences, get an advice, and having an unbiased and judgment-free zone for collaboration and discussions. So how can you start? First of all, talk to your HR or C-level executives to gain support. It's very important to have corporate support. If you don't have it, it might be very difficult within an organization. However, you might still be able to do it outside of the place of work. Talk to your colleagues, understand what is your gaps, what are your challenges, where can you help them, what this network can create, and understand then, define it, what it is that your mission will be. Understand the activities that might be helpful. Is it meeting every week appropriate, or maybe once a quarter? Maybe there is a seminar, maybe there is a happy hour that you sponsor, whatever that might be, that helps to navigate the discussion and the appropriate placement of collaboration. Find members who can help you set up, bring those individuals together. You cannot do it by yourself. While you might want to think that you're a superwoman, we all cannot do it everything ourselves. We need the support of individuals. And then finally, smart, small, and grow from there. Have a plan. How are you going to grow it? It's not always the feasible thing to start it big and keep it big. It has to be a smaller, and the network over time is going to grow, and you're going to have more support to do it. Moving this forward. There's some things to think about, example of topics that you might want to do for women's network, especially. Parental leave policies. That has been a big topic in the United States. Europe is much more advanced in this. US still has plenty to do in that area. Pay parity. I think we all are talking across the world how we bring the pay parity for women and men together. Career advancements. That's usually the topic, and especially right now, with knowing that many women corporate leaders are resigning from their posts. How do we provide that career, and how do we encourage young women to join leadership and stay there? Continuing education, mentorship programs, financial advice sessions. Again, women tend to not to be as good in thinking about planning, because we're always planning for someone else, but not for ourselves. We live longer than our spouses, than our male counterparts. How do you ensure that you can live to 100 years old if your husband dies at 60? You have 40 years to live, almost half of your life by yourself. How do you do that? And then finally, pivoting your career resources, and then creating communication skills that can help you succeed. So I hope as you're thinking about where we are, think about the equity as a way to create a platform for yourself to be successful, but also thinking about what you want to head. And furthermore, engage it, think about it. How can you help others? What are the things that are needed? And always remember, understanding what are the gaps for individuals, being more equitable, and thinking, what can you give them to be able to have the opportunity, create equality at the end. So thank you so much for your time. I truly appreciate it. It's a privilege being here. And I hope you enjoyed the rest of the conference, and I'll take any questions. So thank you very much.